But we want to start with, this is new Nintendo 3DS launch week. If you're in the UK and other territories, you're getting both versions. By now you know that.
Yay.
In the US, you're only getting one version, the XL. All versions don't come with plugs, though, so we all have something in common.
Stupid question. Does this launch in the UK right now, too?
Yes.
Or?
Yeah.
Oh,
13th.
same day.
Same
Okay,
day.
cool.
All right. And once again, I think we should kick off with transfer stories because this has been kind of a thing a lot of people are asking us about. And I'm curious to hear Krupa's experience with this.
Yeah,
Not that the UK is that different, but
No,
I want to
it's
hear
not.
how you dealt with this.
It's equally confusing for people in the UK. So I did mine. I've had my new 3DS for about a week, but I didn't transfer it. And then I came to San Francisco. And I have no internet in my flat currently because I've just moved in. And I realized I can't do this because I was going to do the method using an SD card via a MacBook.
Oh, yeah.
But you still need the internet to do, what did you call it, a system transfer?
License transfer.
It's a license transfer.
To
Yeah.
do that, and then it could read all the data that I transfer on the SD card. I know.
Really?
Yes. I tried to do it tethering to my phone, which is not ideal.
No.
So I dashed into the office on Saturday morning before I needed to be at Heathrow, and I had a time limit of 2 hours to get this done.
Uh-oh.
I just did it.
Wow.
I just did it.
Okay,
Wow.
that's you.
I nearly didn't get through
That
security,
was
but I just did
nine
it.
9 hours shorter than it took me. So
So that's the whole transfer of the
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
So that's the additional time.
Yes.
Again, this is all confusing. And I'm on my desk in the London office, the London IGN office, with the instruction booklet, which I think is next to useless for doing this.
Oh, absolutely.
Various browser tabs open up. Videos guiding me through it, and I still wasn't really sure the best way to do this.
Did you notice that the instruction on how to open the back is in a different area than the transfer?
And
so
there should be a
it doesn't even
you
flow
look at it
right.
like, wait, how do you do this? And then you like rifle through some like pages of text and small print. You're like, oh, there it is. You got to poke the sides
Then you
with
flip
the stylus.
back, yeah.
And like there's that sort of like buzzing, murmuring fear in the back of your brain the entire time that if something goes awry, you have to call Nintendo customer support and be like, all of my games are gone. That's sort of the thing I was kicking around in the back of my head was that the last few years there have been horror stories of people's 3DSs getting stolen and them just not being able to just click a button and everything was back to them. Like everything had to do with
My
somewhere else.
girlfriend, when she did the last transfer, lost 130 hours of Animal Crossing time.
Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure I know what she did wrong, but I'm never going to tell her.
She doesn't listen
Because
to the
because
podcast.
I want to make sure people don't think like
No, it's not.
something goes wrong
No.
all the time. Like if the transfer process gets interrupted, the systems recover, right? Like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happens at the very end of the transfer, and this is just to kind of reiterate, the game licenses are in the name of the systems. Let's say your system's name is Daniel.
Yeah.
And your IGN, your Nintendo ID is Daniel IGN, right? Like all the licenses are in Daniel, not in his username, not his Nintendo ID. And so what has to happen is one 3DS with, the Daniel ID has to talk to the new 3DS with Daniel 2 ID and tell it, I no longer use these licenses. You now use these licenses.
Well,
and that happens at the very end.
Well, and to add to the confusion, the question we keep getting, that we're actually looking into this right now for you, dear listener, is that if you bought a system with something pre-installed on it and you're transferring to it, what happens? Now, this is not a first-time thing. This has been happening with like the Animal Crossing 3DS, with the Fire Emblem 3DS, the Link Between Worlds 3DS. I think you had to actually download the game. It didn't come pre-installed that I can remember. But I guess what I'm throwing out there for folks is that as long as when you set up the new system that has the pre-installed game, you jump immediately into the transfer process and you don't, say, tie a Nintendo Network ID to it.
Yeah, don't create a new one. Don't create
Yeah.
a new one. Don't log in with your old one.
Exactly. And even if you tried to log in with your old one, you can't because it's still on your old one.
Yeah.
You didn't do the transfer process to
Right.
do it, which is where this all gets so mind-bogglingly confusing. And for some folks, they'll say, well, no, you just follow the instructions. Even the instructions are confusing. And that's the thing that we're trying to put out to you is just to be careful.
Yeah.
Don't lose 1,000 hours in Animal Crossing.
I'm worried that we're scaremongering. It's actually going via a laptop and transferring data is actually very safe. Because
Super
you've
safe.
got
Yeah.
that data backed up on your computer, which maybe you should do anyway.
Yeah, but there is that. I mean, I had the same thing happen to me where I lost a whole bunch of progress in my Animal Crossing game, like the last time around, and it wasn't like it's not like losing 130 hours in Tetris. It's like losing.
Wait,
a
how
house
is
in a
130?
flood.
Oh, okay, I got you. now.
You know,
Yeah.
it's like everything you've been personally building. You've been paying off this raccoon for a year, and now it's gone.
So we created, if you search IGN 3DS Wiki, there's a section where we describe the transfer process between all the different units, and there's a 3DS to new 3DS transfer, and we outlined all the three principal processes of transferring your data. One is, using a PC to back up the data and then transfer it to a new memory card, blah, blah, blah. There's one that is, loading everything through the internet, which takes forever. And there's one where you only transfer the save game data and the licenses. It goes very fast, but then you have to re-download the games basically a la carte one by one, right? But you still own them. So we posted that and promoted it on IGN, and like a lot of questions came in very specific to, will this move? Will I lose that? So I just want to address that. Like, if you had a DSi game like Four Swords, during the transfer process, it asks you to, it actually addresses it and will save that game specifically through to the SD card. And yes, you can transfer it. You will not lose it. Your save game data, your kind of your meetup stuff, your Street Pass data will all transfer in the process. Yeah. The only issue can come in is if your old memory card is 32 gigs and your new one in the new 3DS is only 4. Right? And you're trying to move all your games, they won't fit. Yeah. And so in that case, you say, no, don't move my games. It'll still move the licenses, so you can pick and choose what games to install, delete them, re-download however you want.
And it'll also pack up all of those saves as backup files, which apparently they can then unpack once you get a better card and go through this again.
I was going to make a suggestion, too. Like, if you're buying a new 3DS, go on Amazon or go to whatever store you have and buy a 32 gig micro SD
really
card.
Cheap.
Oh, Wiki has the ones that work with it.
$20, and just buy it, put it in there, and set it and forget it. And because this is not a thing that you're going to want to do more than once. In this console's life.
Get a big one.
Especially with the way this is designed as well.
Even just taking it off.
Access.
So I put a 32 gig in there. I've heard there's ways to do 64. It was kind of cumbersome to work that around.
It's a formatting hack. You have to format it on a PC.
I will say I'm one of those guys that I've gone I'm like 99% digital with my 3DS library, and I have tons of games there, and I've had no problem storing all of them on a 32 gig. So
that's the puzzling part. It feels like this was designed around like folks who aren't really relying a lot on digital, like with the size of the card that's in the system and with the process that's involved, it feels a bit strange.
Which I find interesting because I feel like every time Nintendo talks about sales or they talk about their game sales, more and more part of the conversation is talking about how strong their digital sales are. Mm-hmm. So to sort of undermine that with a 4 gigabyte card doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I know you do have the ability of downloading a game and then playing it and beating it and deleting it and like moving things around the fridge, as they used to call it. I personally don't like doing that. Like, especially if I'm about to go on a flight and I want a bunch of games there. I don't want to spend the time in between booking my cab and packing my bags to download Fire Emblem over again.
Well, the other thing, like as we transition from the physical era to the digital one, is that we were proud of our game collections, right? Yeah. I mean, when you have a lot of games, maybe you're running out of room, you're going to put some in boxes, but usually you love seeing that you have all these games and you like kind of spotting them, remembering them, and even like enticing them to play them again. Yeah. Whereas in digital, like there's nothing on 3DS that says this is what you own, here's your virtual bookshelf, and if you want to play this game, you need to re-download it. It's like it's just not there, right? You have to go into the eShop to look at it and
that's something that you kind of see in iBooks, where you can have, if you've ever used iBooks on like iOS, you can download books, but if you don't have them download to that particular device, it just shows that you still own it.
And the Kindle too, right?
Yeah,
like your books
that's the thing. Yeah, but I will say that you do sort of. I think you still get that same satisfaction in terms of like my home screen. I just have all the games like listed out. I don't organize by folder. I kind of like having this patchwork quilt of icons to stare at.
But those are all your installed games. You may own more that are not displayed.
May have more, and none of them are represented there. But I will say this: there is light at the end of the tunnel for this transfer process. Not to kind of sway us or change this conversation too much. If you are transferring from a new 3DS, so I did a transfer from a new 3DS XL to the Majora's Mask 3DS XL, which is right now on this table. The transfer process was 15 minutes. It still required the uncomfortable unscrew the back, take the micro SD card out at the end of the process and put it in the other system, but it felt significantly faster than any other transfer that I've done before. Well, I'm saying roughly 15.
That's a light at the end of
a very long
tunnel.
Yeah. Well,
like very few people are going, oh man, I bought a new 3DS a week ago, but I want to get the next one a week later.
That is fair.
But they're able, but there were some people who are using a micro SD card in an SD card adapter in their current 3DS, and that transfer is actually fast too.
Okay.
Because you take it out, you just basically, you don't have to transfer all the data, only the licenses over.
Yeah, and I do want to say, it is sort of my tunnel, but there is the trap of another like limited system came out and someone does that, and there are plenty of folks in this office who have done that, so that's not to oversell that, but I will say that thank God. The second
Yeah,
time
and
it's
also-
easier because heck no, I don't want to go through that again.
100%. And again, to like kind of focus on the positive a little more. Once you get through that insane bank heist that is moving from one thing to another with like a train and a helicopter on fire, the system's awesome, and I love having all my games on that thing. And it's so quick and so smooth, like kind of moving and navigating around the menus, jumping into Smash Brothers.
Part
And
of the
stuff
process doesn't feel new.
yeah,
And that's
Everything else does.
You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
everybody who's listening who's scared. I mean, I've done transfers so many times. Like I buy every basically new system. I've never lost any data.
Yeah.
It does walk you through the process, so it's not that confusing, right? There's always that fear that you're going to lose something. Even like with the pre-installed games, like we're going to test this, make sure there are no hang-ups, but if it works like it's always worked in the past, you can even take the SD card out of the system with the Monster Hunter one, put a new one in, and the system still knows that you own that game because it's the system ID that's registered in the eShop.
That's
and
right.
so unless you create a Nintendo ID on that system to start with and muck things up, it should be really smooth. You'll just have to re-download it.
Yeah, but this is definitely something that I hope if they're listening or aware or watching feedback around this entire like just bizarre process, it needs to get better.
Oh, for
especially
sure.
if you're trying to sell digital. Like this needs to
And
be
this
a
is
better
something you talked
process.
about recently, this idea of a consolidated system account.
Has
Yeah.
to happen.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no. I mean, like Microsoft's doing it between Windows and Xbox, right? Like it's crazy
Well,
that it
Sony's
doesn't
doing it right now too
happen,
between
yeah.
Vita, PS3, and PS4, where there's one ID that everything is tied to, and you just. I thought their method was really smart, actually, to give them some credit because there's just a limit on the number of devices, and I think
Yeah.
that makes a lot more. That does make sense if that's what Nintendo's worried about. That folks will be signing in with Pairs ID, and there'll be 5 systems with Pairs ID, and therefore they lost sales on 5 games.
And,
Yeah.
and the most successful systems and digital download universes out there figured this out early, right? iTunes, I can license a new laptop. I don't have to re-download every album on every device I own. The same with Kindles, right? If your household has 5 Kindles, you can transfer the data to all of these, right? There are limitations in place, and Microsoft tried to do that too, where you can play a game on any device in your household with a PlayStation, but only one at a time. And so that's what I'm expecting from Nintendo in the future, to make it really, really seamless between different devices as well.
Yeah, and pay attention to their mistakes so that you don't go making your own.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
It's a when. It's not an if. They have to do
Yeah.
it because it is so freaking broken.